I'd rather 1,000 times Doug Peterson than Mike McCarthy. Let's just put this out there. I don't want this narrative.
Track record. I mean,
that's a biased answer, honestly.
Straight to the action, there's a lot going on. Trying to lock these predictions down, right? Call me John. I'ma talk to Jared, cause he might keep me calm. Had my top pick for this week, but he bombed. Caleb said he had a weak week, but he's strong. Jonathan said he repeat, now it's on. In love with the game, who you got, can I wait? Drop by the dorm, come and watch, it's the babe.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dorm Bay podcast. We are all back in our comfort of our own homes. We're back from New Orleans, except Jonathan is actually on the road again. And you'll never guess where Jonathan, our Bills hater, is.
You gotta put the graphic up that he sent us.
Oh, I'm putting the picture up.
For the video. It's a great picture, but it's not emblematic of the Jonathan we all know and love.
Jonathan was in Buffalo for the Bills-Chiefs game, dressed in Bills, but working as a spy for the Chiefs.
Double agent.
He is a double agent. He was secretly cheering for the Chiefs, loves the Chiefs, notably hates the Bills. So I'm sure that loss really ate him alive. What was his text that he sent? He said he felt dead inside. What did he say?
Did. Yeah, he said he felt dead inside. He said he's having to stop himself from cheering. Because I would have paid good money to just have a devoted camera on Jonathan. Because for those who don't know this, he has such a laser focus on the work that he does, for business. So I'd love to see that part of him clash with the football passion that he can't suppress. That's too, an immovable object, unstoppable force, and just to watch him in his chair cope with that reality. I think that's what
he finally put to good use the hat that I had to buy for him.
He looks great in the picture. It's got the fog ambiance in the background.
Really fitting that you gave it to him, John, because he was cold. He bought a Bills hoodie. That must have really been cold for him to buy.
He didn't have a choice.
And I think that touchdown, the rushing touchdown by Allen, the game winner, was in the end zone that he was seated. So it would.
Whoa.
I mean, it just
maybe his mind will be changed. We'll have to ask him next week if he's finally
maybe
witnessed.
Yeah, maybe he's giving some respect to Allen.
No,
2 years in a row is what it takes.
If he's listening, I know exactly what he's gonna say. He's gonna come on the podcast and be like, "The game's meaningless. It was a regular season game. They don't win. They don't win when it matters." That's what he's gonna say. And it's true. I mean, they really did.
Is he wrong, though, actually?
He's right. No, he's...
So far, it was a great win, but...
Yeah. I mean, we're not going to talk about that game, but it was the only contest between the Bills and the Chiefs that wasn't a one-score game, that didn't end in a one-score game.
Wow.
So it was definitely a good win by the Bills, and the Chiefs are not undefeated anymore, so there are no undefeated teams. The Miami Dolphins fans, you can have your undefeated season still. Nobody can do it. But I want to leave that game off because I want to talk about something that they showed right before the Sunday Night Football game. And it's coaches that could potentially get fired. And who's the next one? Who's the most likely to be fired the soonest? I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but you guys know what I'm trying to say. Who's going to get fired next?
Hottest?
Yeah, who's going to get fired next? And the number one guy, which kind of shocked me, but then after I thought about it, it made sense. Doug Peterson, a guy, Caleb, that you know well. He won a Super Bowl with the Eagles. They think he's the next guy out. They actually asked Doug in the press conference after they lost. I don't know who they lost to, John. Who did they lose to?
The Lions.
So he lost to the Lions.
52 to something.
52-6.
And Doug, they're like, "Oh, what do you think about getting fired? Have you heard rumors, whatever?" He's like, "If it happens, it happens." So doesn't sound great, to be honest. But I wanted to get your thoughts on the guys that have the highest odds to be the next head coach fired. Number one, highest odds to get fired next, Brian Daboll. John, how would you feel about Daboll getting fired?
I'm curious if you keep going through this list. I don't know what site you got it from, but I'm curious if they just go by worst record because the Giants have the worst record. So is the next team going to be either Jaguars or Panthers?
No.
Okay.
Matt Eberflus of the Chicago Bears.
Oh, okay.
That's one that I saw floated because they fired their OC, their offensive
Yeah,
coordinator.
they
right?
fired their offensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
But if they
Yeah.
fired their offensive coordinator, I feel like the coach has at least like another 3 or 4 games to, pick it up.
Right.
If he loses the next 3 or 4, then yeah, he's probably gone. But in terms of Dayball, I don't think that's going to happen. I think that the team already knows that the season's over. It doesn't seem like Daniel Jones is going to start this week coming off a bye. I don't think Dayball's going to get fired. I think that he's actually going to probably be our coach throughout the offseason and for next season. He's still a good coach, and that he's dealing with tough stuff. He's dealing with a tough,
He's
quarterback
got no
situation.
quarterback. He lost Sparkley.
Right.
There's not
It's like
much
out of his control a little bit.
Right.
Like it's like front office stuff, kind of. You
Right.
know? 'Cause what was in the video of was it the Hard Knocks? Was he vouching to keep Barkley? Like it seemed like things outside of his control were happening. I mean, you'd want. I don't know. What you tapped into.
Dayball
John.
didn't really have much of a say in keeping Barkley or not. So
I
it's
thought
not
he
real.
wanted to trade up for a quarterback. Like
Right,
he
that-
really
but-
liked Jaden Daniels in the interview process, but obviously
Something like that, right?
Yeah, it wouldn't have worked out. But he did want to. I thought he wanted to trade up for a quarterback. I mean, John, your personal views, you like Dayball overall? You'd rather them keep him?
Yeah, I'd rather keep him. I mean, I just don't know who else we're gonna get. Like, I mean, there's always head coaching options, like promoting guys that are, QB coaches or offensive coordinators. But I think Dayball, I would give him another year. He did well with Josh Allen, and I could see another young quarterback coming into the system next year. And yeah, it could be a good time if you're the GM. It could be like, okay, yeah, let's just start fresh, new, head coach, new quarterback. But I kind of like what Dayball's been doing, and I would keep him around.
Yeah, I mean, as a rival, Caleb, indifferent about Dayball. Do you actually kind of respect Dayball? They had one good year where they made the playoffs, beat the Vikings, and then haven't been back since.
Yeah, and he's gotten what was the kind of historic comparison year to year, where he got Coach of the Year one year, and the next year was like a big kind of collapse for the Giants. A lot of the reasons John said. As an Eagles fan, I'm kind of indifferent. If anything, I think he's a good coach. But I've said this before on the podcast that so many times head coaches tie their fate to the quarterback, whether they like go into the situation choosing the quarterback or it's a young guy already there. The success of their job largely depends on the quarterback. And it's like sometimes it's hard to split between the two. And I'm not sure the details of like how involved Dayball was in paying Daniel Jones that much if he wanted him to be the guy. And I guess that's proportional to how hot his seat is. But from what I've seen, I think he's a good coach, and that organization has a long history. A lot of people, how do they lose Barkley? How do they pay Daniel Jones and lose Barkley? Like based on what I've seen, so it's like if he really let all that go with his blessing, I'd be a little more concerned about his job security. But it seems to me, not that he was he had no idea either, but like he got there to coach, and these things were in the process somewhat. I feel like his fate's tied to whether Daniel Jones the future or not, and whether the organization sees it as that way too.
Well, and Jones isn't his quarterback, right? He wasn't the one that was there that drafted him. So
Right, like it was a year, right? Like there wasn't an overlap there. Like it wasn't.
Who was it?
Doug
Was it
Peterson? There was an overlap, right?
Yeah, like who drafted?
Oh no, it was
Jones?
Urban Meyer. What am I saying?
Who drafted Daniel Jones? Was
Let's
it
look it up.
was it
Yeah,
McAdoo?
honestly, no, McAdoo was
Oh.
way before. I can't remember who it was.
But it's like I say with to bring it back to Doug Peterson. Like after a few years, I'm like I don't know if Trevor Lawrence is the guy, and Doug Peterson's fate I think is largely tied to that fact, in my opinion. Now, could you get another coach in there? Maybe he flourishes. Yeah, but Doug Peterson's a quarterback. He was a backup in the NFL as a quarterback, and he's known for developing QBs. I think he's a great coach, but maybe it's time that the grass is greener somewhere else. He's won a Super Bowl. He's got it in him. But I think with the Jags situation, they got Brian Thomas, a stud. They got, they have the pieces. They've drafted O-line. I think Doug Peterson's going to get a lot of the blame because of the Eagles' recency, relatively speaking. And then the Jags not doing well. But the Jags not doing well, I think, is just on whether, I don't think, from what I've seen enough to think Lawrence, for how high he was drafted, is not getting the returns they want. And I think Doug Peterson is going to be the first to go because of that.
So he has the third highest odds to be fired next.
Oh my, people betting on
They're
that.
they're 2
Can
and
you imagine
9.
people betting on you to lose your jobs?
Honestly, I think that honestly, if I had to pick one, I think Doug Peterson would be next, based on how that game went today and his comments after the
Yes.
fact, like, oh, if it happens, it happens, or like I can't control that. Like, dude, they have a bye next week. I don't even know if he's gonna make it through the bye. Like, if he sits down with his team during the bye, what is he gonna say to them to get them to like turn this around? If I'm a player, I'm like, this guy's an idiot. Like he's led us to 2 and 9. Like what? He can't say anything to like motivate me at this point. Like you got to
They have
change
injuries
it.
too. They have injuries too over there, right?
Who? I mean,
not
other than
really.
other than Trevor Lawrence, but
That's a big one, and that's if you still think he's the guy. You know, like then it's like, how can you
The one
blame the
big
losses?
quote that I heard on Sunday night, right before this game, was the owner in the beginning of the season or preseason was like, "This is the best roster we've assembled in years." That's
well,
what
if,
he
he,
said.
if he truly believes that, then Peterson should be fired now.
in theory, yes.
This
in
guy-
theory,
was it Khan, Mr. Khan, right? With
Yeah.
the mustache.
yeah, yeah.
But y'all told you, and many people might not remember this because it was the Eagles year we won. But Blake Bortles and the Jaguars, you remember how high they got and how good they got in the playoffs, and then they just blew everything up. I mean, for fair reason, but that's like, yeah, they're trying to replicate that.
Yeah.
I want to bring up something about Doug Peterson because when those comments were made, I started looking up his track record, Doug Peterson. You know how we talk about like Mike McCarthy, and he's on this list as well, Mike McCarthy. We always talk about like,
Now Jonathan would be happy.
yeah,
about that.
you know, we're always like, dang, he's really hanging on to that one Super Bowl that he won
Yeah.
back millenniums ago. Like, this guy, Doug Peterson, may be his doppelganger. They may be
Yeah.
looking in the mirror.
It is. Yeah.
I swear to you, but
I don't like
let me read this, all right?
It is actually makes
That's-
sense.
No, Caleb, let me read this out.
You're disrespecting the
Caleb,
Eagles
no
legend.
I know you're
bias.
just I know you have a statue of him. I get it.
Yeah,
But
he earned that set.
hear me out right now.
Okay, all
So
right.
he is his head coaching record. He started at the Eagles in 2016. All right, and he went till 2020, 2016 to 2020. Wins 42, losses 37. He won 7 games in 2016. That was under 500. Then 2017, the Super Bowl year, 13. Then he won 9 wins, and 4 wins. Then he goes to the Jags, 9 wins, 2 wins. He is 20 and 25 overall. Doesn't that sound like Mike McCarthy, who we're all saying, oh, you know, that one good year, but other than that one good year, like, what are we talking about? Doug Peterson may have had one good Super Bowl run and got lucky with Nick Foles and everybody. And sure, he did great that one year, but maybe it was lightning in a bottle because the consistency that he's at is like 9 wins. The guy hasn't had double-digit wins since that Super Bowl
Yeah, he's
year.
only had it once. And that means after that record that you said, that means since 2016, he's 62 and 62. He's like just perfect 500.
Yeah,
You talk,
he's like
I
the
mean,
most.
people talk about Eli Manning and they're like, oh, he's terrible. He's always 500. So why don't you talk about Doug Peterson
It's-
like that?
It's concerning because
But now he's won 2. No, Manning won 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah,
in that
true.
respect. It's like when you win, when you lose.
I mean it's bad because Mike McCarthy I think should get fired. Doug Peterson, at least Mike McCarthy had a consistency of making the playoffs and whatnot. Look, Doug Peterson, I think
He's the next coach.
I think
is
he's
it.
the next one. I would say Mike McCarthy is a close second, but with Dak being out,
He has a reason to not lose it.
Jerry likes that Mike does whatever he wants, so probably he's going to keep him. But Doug Peterson, you look at his track record, not great. The only reason he made that playoffs in 2022, which with the Jags, at 9-8, was because the whole AFC South sucked.
They won that game though, despite Lawrence throwing like 4 picks.
Yeah.
Who were his quarterbacks as part of it? And this is
The number
the
one
thing.
pick, Trevor Lawrence, Carson Wentz, number 2 overall.
But they drafted Jalen, which I was upset at the time.
And
too.
had time with Jalen.
But talking about developing quarterbacks, I'd rather 1,000 times Doug Peterson than Mike McCarthy. Let's just put this out there. I don't want this narrative.
Track record.
I mean,
though?
that's a biased answer, honestly.
That's
gotta be
before he was on the Cowboys. My thinking with and my opinion with Rodgers is it's a nuanced opinion, but I felt like what you had with Brady and Belichick was maybe the argument could have been made Rodgers had more quote unquote talent, more fun to watch, like he could do it. My thinking, even you can find this on the podcast, I felt like Mike McCarthy wasted that prime Rodgers. Like he could have gotten more out of it had he been Belichick-esque.
But
that's
honestly,
I kind of like. I do like that take, honestly.
That's something I've held with McCarthy for a while, and like the Cowboys, they're still doing what the Cowboys do. Regular season,
right?
I mean, not this. This season's actually one of the first where the Cowboys just flat out. The Thursday night game with the Commanders Eagles. The Commanders are looking finally good. Mm-hmm. Now that the bad man is gone, so that's going to be a problem too. But no, I am biased. I'm struggling to stay neutral. I would just ask, who were Doug Peterson's quarterbacks? And the quarterback situation post Super Bowl was also a very unique one, to be fair. And then Trevor Lawrence is similar. Like first 2 years, I was saying they were dark horses because I was like, all right, first year with Doug or second year with Doug, they're in the playoffs. They're dark horses. Like, all right, the next year's the one. And I'm like, finally, like, all right, it's not happening. And I don't think it's only because of Doug. I think it's sadly, now I could eat those words if next year there is a new coach and Trevor Lawrence goes off. But frankly, I think the evaluations might have been just overhyped, I think.
Yeah, I think he's a good coach. But like he did turn around that Urban Meyer bad year, came in after Urban Meyer. I think
that first year is a culture setting year. Not to say it doesn't matter, but like his record doesn't reflect equal standings. I think
you know for a fact teams and owners will pick the quarterback, the young quarterback, over the head coach. So it might just be a circumstance of we're not going to let go of a first overall pick, a guy that when he was drafted, people waited years for him to finally be in the draft and all that. So
that's why the Bears are kind of interesting.
Yeah,
I think the Bears are a weird one, but I think they're almost more likely.
The Bears one is cool. So Matt Eberflus, second.
It's cool. He might lose his job.
No, it's cool.
Let's talk about this guy losing his job. Here we go.
It's so cool.
His family has to move. No.
Who cares? He gets millions of dollars, Caleb. It doesn't matter.
Honestly, Caleb,
they have a buyout. They have a buyout.
Yeah, but this is still this is football.
He's making more this year than we will in 10 years.
Literally.
Actually, we did make a lot on the YouTube ads last month. We got 10 cents.
We're doing great, guys.
We're getting there.
Matt Eberflus is another one that, for me, I don't know what he's done at all. I don't know what he's good at. And to be honest, the OC being fired, and they did look better this year. Or they did look better this game. Caleb Williams ran it more than ever. I think he had like 60 rushing yards, which looked a lot like Justin Fields. It's like the same movie over and over. Where draft,
they did the same facial expression. You guys see that? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you see that image of them like looking up at the sky? It's the same facial expression.
It's the same movie, and they lose on a blocked kick. I think this Bears franchise is cursed. But Matt Eberflus sure as heck ain't gonna turn this around. You would need a Jim Harbaugh to turn around this curse that the Bears have right now. I think Eberflus should be gone. The only coach on this list I think should stay, to be honest. There's Dayball, Matt Eberflus, Doug Peterson, Kevin Stefanski, Zach Taylor, Mike McCarthy, and Mike McDonald. I think coaches that should lose their job, Eberflus, Peterson, Mike McCarthy. Zach Taylor possibly. I'm not going to lie.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, yeah.
The slow starts annoy me. He doesn't know how to utilize players. Look at how much Joe Mixon
we
is
talked about this the other day.
He doesn't know how to utilize players. Look at Chase.
Yeah, Joe Mixon is absolutely unlocked with the Texans. I just don't like these slow starts. And again, you're not gonna throw away Joe Burrow. they're gonna eventually have to point the finger at somebody, and it's
He
gonna
went
be
to
Zach
the Super
Taylor.
Bowl though.
One time.
He made it. No, but he made an AFC Championship after that.
Yeah, so is everybody, and they lose to the Chiefs.
So what's he do? He's not going to be
If you're
different
gonna
than
beat the
anybody
Chiefs,
else.
you need something better.
Nobody
something better.
can. Nobody can
The Bills just did.
in the playoffs.
Yeah, in the playoffs.
Only Tom Brady can.
Yeah, only Tom Brady.
Evidently.
And he's available. No, I was kidding.
He's never gone.
I'm saying hot seat. It's more than you would think, in my opinion. But
That's a good one. That's an interesting one.
I think-
'Cause I was ranting about them 2 weeks ago, right? Or a few weeks ago.
they're not
It's like
gonna-
how
he's
many
not gonna
years
be
of the Bengals starting 0-4 or whatever, they catch up, they get hot, and they have to dig out a hole to even get into the playoffs. And they
Yeah.
have the talent. They have a guy like Chase and Burr, and that's a good point. Maybe it is on
They're
the,
going to miss the playoffs again this year.
and that's crazy.
Yeah.
But how many years of slow?
Give it.
You
I'd
can't
give
start
it one
that
more.
slow.
If he starts, I'd say if he goes 0-2 next year, I'd fire him after that second game.
You know he's going to do
If
it.
he goes
not doing
if he
this
goes
again.
0-1, I'd pull him into my office and be like, "Look, I promised myself that you'd be gone if you went 0-2. So this is your whole life right here."
Or you know what? You just play the narratives hardcore. You get Cliff Kingsbury, right? First 8 games, he's in charge. 'Cause that's
Yeah,
when he
honestly,
falls
yeah,
off,
that's a
right?
good idea.
And then you put Zach Taylor in, and it's like, all right, now that the team's hot, you just get him cooking.
I like that. I like that. All right. Lastly, let's take our picks. One guy you think will be fired next. I'm gonna go with Doug Peterson.
I'm saying Doug Peterson as well.
I'm not saying. I'm not gonna
Say
no.
Mike.
Say Mike.
I want it. Well, I would say Mike, but I think Jerry drives the Ford delusion. I don't think he's gonna do it.
Yeah, he likes that he's his little puppet.
And then you have to compare it with Mike. Like, there's talk of Mike Vrabel is still looking for work potentially. So
Is he on Indeed? He's looking.
Yeah. Somebody found his resume somewhere.
LinkedIn is. I actually feel like the Bears maybe.
Yeah, I like that.
Because if they have this, they're not going to get rid of Caleb. Like kind of what you were saying, Jared. They can't get rid of. It'd be weird with the Bears, but then I compare it to the Jets. Like I don't think they solved their problem by getting rid of Saleh. I think it was internal things, and they're not doing any better. Whereas the Bears and Jets are two organizations that have been pretty terrible for many years. I think because of how they treat their personnel and the people on the field. And I think that pattern will continue. Maybe if they're smart, maybe they'll get a Vrabel to like change the culture and build on this guy, on Williams, if he's the real deal.
Yeah,
But,
you need a Jim Harbaugh. I mean, when Jim Harbaugh comes to town, he
feeling good?
he strips the place down. I'm talking rips the wallpapers off, redetails everything, puts quotes on the wall. Like you're working out together, you're not working solo. He puts in a strength. Like it's complete rebuild. The Bears need that. Is Mike Ditka still alive?
No. No.
You might need to go back to go forward. Is what I'm trying to say. Wait, you say he's dead?
Is he?
No, he's not dead. There's no way.
Let's look.
Thought he was.
No, he's around.
He's alive. You need that type of guy.
So you're telling me you want to get
How-
85-year-old Mike Ditka?
Yeah, I need some of that old-fashioned coaching where it's borderline bullying and harassment. and assault.
Belichick says he wants to come
Belichick's
back.
available.
Yeah, it's just boring. Hey, maybe Belichick would be good. Belichick would be good. I wouldn't mind that one. All right.
I just don't think the Bears have the culture to do it. I said this about Cincinnati 2 years ago, and I think it's sadly been true. They got to the Super Bowl though.
Maybe Belichick onto Cincinnati.
Maybe with Burrow.
Yeah. Interesting.
Let's go to the 49ers. John, you're a big 49ers guy. I had them winning division. Caleb, you actually had the Seahawks win the division, I think. But right now, they are 2-4 in one-score games, 1-3 in the division, and they are dead last at 5-5. They just lost 20-17 to the Seahawks in San Francisco. CMC came back.
Wow.
This is his second game back. But yet again, John, I need you to answer some questions as far as where is this offense? Debo seems like non-existent. Kittle is out. Ayuk is out. Juwan Jennings finally shows up, but Like, are you concerned? You're a big 49ers guy, so I want to give you time to talk and maybe comfort some 49ers fans to be like, hey, let's relax. Are you concerned about this 5-5 start?
Yeah, I'm
No.
concerned, guys.
Don't let Jonathan hear that.
I'm only saying this because Jonathan's not here. No, but I'm concerned. Here's the reason. Ayuk isn't there. It's not a big deal. Jennings fills in pretty well. McCaffrey is back. He doesn't look the same. I think it might take some time for him to uptick, but you said it. They can't really close out these close games. They lose another one-score game. Not only that, the defense doesn't look that great. And Nick Bosa got hurt. He's been dealing with this hip injury. He couldn't even come out on the last drive. That's why Geno went down the field and scored. When Nick Bosa was on the field, they didn't score any touchdowns. But the 2 touchdowns that the Seahawks scored in the game, Nick Bosa had to come off the field because he was hurt. So he wasn't on the field for any of the defensive scores or scores by the Seahawks. So this is concerning because the next 2 games, they go at Green Bay, they just won a nail biter. That's going to be tough. We know how tough it is to play in Lambeau. Then they have to go to Buffalo. I mean, I don't. If they win one of those, I'd be actually like pretty impressed by it because Buffalo just beat Kansas City. They're playing super well. I mean, this division. The only thing that helps is that this division is super close, and they still do have to play the Rams and the Cardinals. They already played the Seahawks and went 1-1. They already lost to the Rams and lost to the Cardinals. So they're going to have to beat both of them. But still, they still got to play in Miami and play the Dolphins. They could lose that. They still got to play the Lions. Lions are playing super well. So I am concerned about this. I know I made a bet with Jonathan about the 49ers winning the division, but I could tell you 49ers fans, it's going to be close. It's going to come down those last 2 games, Lions, Cardinals. They're going to have to hope the Lions win out and the Lions sit players 2 weeks before the end of the season. That's unlikely because, to be up by that much with 2 games left. But anyway, Cardinals, the last game, they're going to have to win that. I am concerned. What I will say is the Cardinals actually are in first in the division at 6-4. I think they have the easiest schedule out of the rest of the division because they still have to play the Patriots and the Panthers, which are 2 winnable games. And that's actually probably the 2 easiest non-division games that they have. They still got to play Seahawks twice, Panthers, Rams, 49ers once, and then the Vikings. But this division's going to come down to the last couple games. But bottom of the line, I am actually worried about the 49ers. I need to see more from McCaffrey. I need to see him ramp up and actually look like the McCaffrey of old. And I need to see this defense without Nick Bosa. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, I think what worries me the most is the 2-4 in 1-score games. And honestly, I don't have a stat for this, but it seems like in those 1-score games, they control the first 4 quarters up until like 5 minutes left. And it seems like, they're like they keep them at arm's length and they don't really like finish them. They don't put the nail in the coffin, but they're up. And you're like, 49ers will probably just hold on and win this. And then all of a sudden, you blink twice and they're down. It happened with the Cardinals. It happened again with the Seahawks today, where they're letting up 4th quarter leads.
Yeah.
And for a team that's gone to the Super Bowl how many times? Twice. They've been to the conference championship like 6 times. Great head coach, veteran players on this team. Brock Purdy, not a rookie anymore. I'm shocked that it happens to this type of team that is so experienced and have been to the playoffs so many times that it just they let these leads fall apart. Purdy's actually playing relatively well. I don't know the stats, but today he played extremely well for what he has, for the weapons that he had. But yeah, it's weird. I haven't pinpointed if it's coaching late, but they seem to fall apart in the 4th quarter. It's almost like the Ravens keep falling apart in the 4th quarter, and you're like, how does this happen? You have great players, great team, great coaching, and yet you can't finish games. And those are early signs of a team that in playoff time, you're going to lose. Especially if, like the Ravens, you're going to go up against the Chiefs. Chiefs are on it all day. They finish games. They know how to win close games. And the teams that don't know how to win close games, they get bounced early. So it's concerning for the Niners, concerning for another team like the Ravens. Caleb, what are your thoughts on the 49ers so far?
I cut back to, Super Bowl hangover is a real thing. I cut back to when we talked about them losing to the Chiefs again in the Super Bowl, psychologically what that does to the team. They couldn't get past the wall again. And we talked about the style of football. Now, I have to say to the camera, to the audience, I did accuse Brock Purdy of being, I liked Brock Purdy last year, but I accused him of being a check down merchant. Oh. And I admit I was wrong, especially this season. He can ball. I liked him last year, but I thought that was a lot of the game. What I'm getting to, first, I want to get that out there. Second, I think what we talked about at the end of the Super Bowl, after the Super Bowl, is still true, is that the 49ers game is like really good formula football. It's good theory. It maximizes certain things, but it doesn't really have room for momentum or the intangibles of like learning to hear the music. Like you can read the sheet music of the game and do it really well, but like you're saying, the fundamentals to close out a game, to let your players kind of have some variation. Like it's why they do so well up to a point, and then they lose to a guy like the Chiefs, who are fundamentally very strong, disciplined all across the board, and have intangible players that make intangible plays. Whereas the Niners, the system doesn't really feel like it's so well structured. There's not a lot of room for what it feels like to be like surprise you, if that makes sense. It's hard to articulate. I know. We could have people break it down like, oh, these are the formations and the motions and stuff. And then you add the stuff that, John, you were saying with the injuries, like those to McCaffrey being such a big part in the Super Bowl hangover, and now that people know, last year was McCaffrey's first year with them, right?
Second,
was
I think.
Second full.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people know at this point. And it's a different energy when people know you're a target. Which is part of what makes the Super Bowl hangover a real thing. Now, Chiefs and company are doing is pretty rare and exceptional. But, yeah, I think with the 49ers, it comes down to that. Like, I'd like to see some more playfulness, some more, it's still the same old, like, yeah, they're really good. But then what you're saying, we gave them credit last year for getting to the Super Bowl because they were winning close games because they never did it. So now it's like the same thing again, so last year they were, maybe because McCaffrey was doing so well, they were able to get over those humps, and that's what you need in a football game. And the system doesn't really always allow that.
And honestly,
yeah,
they did bank on CMC last year having a crazy year. They also banked on Debo making crazy plays. It was almost like give it to the guy, your playmaker in space, and let him do his work. Debo, I don't want to bring up the Eagles, but he did have that huge screen run, 75-yard run against the Eagles. That was, a little bubble screen, takes it all the way. How many times do we see that? How many times do we see Debo in the backfield, doing motions and jet sweeps and all this stuff and letting them do the work? Now, Debo's not having a great year. He's been injured. CMC's been injured. So now it's who do you go to? How can you make plays for people down the field?
And last year we were talking about this, like the way they play kind of gets their guys hurt a lot. Now maybe they're
making them do all the heavy lifting.
But like you were describing, we were talking about this, I swear, last year, where it's like those guys get wallops because of the design of the play, not the way to the extreme of that. You see quarterbacks, they don't even consider what the receiver is going to get hit. But we talked about this last year. I swear, am I crazy? Like we were saying the same thing. Like their top guys get hurt because of these play. It's good play design, but that's part of the drawback, the trade-off.
Right. John, are your concerns more division-based or playoff-based? Or do you think they have to win in the division?
Yeah, that's really it. It's more playoff-based because of the fact that it's going to be almost impossible to make the playoffs unless they win the division, because the wild card right now is Vikings, Packers, and then Commanders are in the last spot at 7-4. And the Commanders, we know, are playing great. So for them to reach to knock out the Commanders, that would be very tough at this point. Yeah, you're going to need a lot of help. So it's going to have to be in the division. And it might come down to that last game against the Cardinals, but the Rams are playing pretty
Interesting,
decent.
yeah.
The Seahawks, I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see this division shake out, but it's only going to be one team, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, the math is starting to look really tough. Like you're starting to be able to read the tea leaves, you
Yeah.
know, and of the math for them to get in. They weren't even in like the top 7, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Because I did an Instagram post of like winning and losing, what it meant for the percentages, and they weren't even in there.
Right.
Oh yeah. Pull that up quick. Do you have
Because
that?
Packers were 6-3.
So
entering.
49ers weren't on there.
They weren't top 7, no.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I want to go to that. Was there anybody that we've talked about that was on
7th
here?
place was the Packers at 6-3. They had a 72% chance
72% entering
chance
week
of just
11.
making the playoffs,
Yep.
and that's the 7th place. The Niners weren't even on the list. I mean, I can check. I'll check my sources.
While you're doing that, oh wow, that's pretty cool. So the Steelers are my next team that I want to talk about. Your chart, Caleb, says that with a win this week, so today they beat the
Yeah.
Ravens, 98% chance to make the playoffs.
Hey.
So Steelers, they actually, believe it or not, in Week 11 played their first divisional game. They beat the Ravens 18-16, and they scored no touchdowns. They won solely off of Boswell's leg kicking field
Nice.
goals.
I better pay that guy.
Pay him a lot. He might be better than Justin Tucker, who missed,
Oh,
2 field goals?
Yeah.
I have the percentage for the Niners. Do you want it?
Yeah.
So NFC bubble teams, Niners were 8 entering Week 11. They were spot 8, and they had a 59% playoff chance, a chance to get into the playoffs. With a win, it would have gone to 66%. With a loss, entering the playoffs as period, would have gone losing brings it down to 38%.
Wow.
1 in
That's
3
bad.
chance.
Don't let Jonathan hear about that.
No.
According to NFL.com, that's my source.
No, okay, NFL, that guy's not
Oh, you
trustworthy.
can't trust that. I don't
You
think.
can't trust it. So yeah, the Pittsburgh Steelers, this is the second time that they've won a game without scoring a touchdown. Week 1, they beat the Falcons with only kicking field goals.
That's fun. I try to do that in Madden sometimes.
I never
Purpose?
kick.
Just like how
I never
you-
kick.
it's kind of a testament to like a certain skill of theirs if they're able to consistently always get into field goal range. Because you know how many times you have to get into field goal range, make it to compete with a team that's scoring touchdowns. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
And-
you have to always be getting something. Like your ROI is at least 3 every time.
Unfortunately for the Ravens, they were getting down the field, but then they kept missing kicks.
A tough day for Tucker.
Um,
A lot of kickers missing.
Yeah, so the Steelers, I said 1-score games for the Niners were 2-4. The Steelers 5-2, so they've had 7
Ooh.
1-score games. They are 8-2 on the season, and have a 2-game lead in the division. They are in first in the AFC North. So I guess what my question is, how long can the Steelers keep getting away with this? How long can you get away with only kicking field goals and winning games and potentially winning a division? I mean, if it was any other team, you'd say they were frauds. They're like bottom 10 in red zone efficiency when it comes to scoring touchdowns. But yet it doesn't matter because they keep getting there, they keep kicking field goals. It was like the Commanders in like week 3 when they faced the Giants. They won solely on kicks. You know, so is it, I guess it's not a bad thing, but it's also not a great thing. It's like you're finishing drives but with 3 points more consistently, but then you're not getting the ultimate goal. Like I don't know. They're 98% to make the playoffs. They're going to make the playoffs. The division, I think the Ravens are 2 behind. I mean, I had the Ravens. I'm a little biased, but there's no way that the Steelers keep getting away with this. There's no way, right?
Yeah.
They're getting away with something. Like that's the
They're
framing of the
stealing
question.
these games off the foot of Chris Boswell. And look, the defense is phenomenal. They're always phenomenal. Wilson's playing good, but like that's the thing. When you're not scoring touchdowns, how can I say you're playing great? You know,
That's
you
an interesting point.
the offense is good, but I guess it's just good enough. And I guess that's all you need to be. You only need to win the game by 1, and that's what they're doing. I don't know. I don't even know what to think of the Steelers, but I feel like it's just such an anomaly that like a team that is not good at scoring touchdowns is winning games so consistently. I don't know. It's just crazy. Because the freaking Bengals last week, how many touchdowns did Jamar Chase have? And they lose to the Ravens. The Steelers play them the next week, and they only kick field goals, no touchdowns, and they win. And they beat the Ravens.
Feel like shit. Yeah.
Like 90 to 100 fantasy points between two men wasn't enough to beat them, but then Chris Boswell is enough.
Like, you can't keep getting away with this, man.
I will say,
how many fantasy points did he score?
My opinion. Oh, Boswell had 24 fantasy points.
Oh, beautiful. I love when kickers go off.
Yeah.
Wait, I want to show this stat quick. Joe Burrow has thrown 9 touchdowns against the Ravens, lost both games. Steelers just beat the Ravens, no touchdowns. Explain that, John.
No, I really can't. I have no explanation for you. But what I will say is I don't think it's going to last much longer. At the end of the day, if you want to win in the playoffs, you have to have a pretty diverse offense. Now, when's the last time we saw a dominant defense get to the Super Bowl? Now, it does happen sometimes, but typically we don't see that. And you actually have to have at least a serviceable offense, at least in this day and age in the NFL, especially when you're dealing with the Chiefs and Bills. Now, we're going to see the Chiefs play the Steelers in week 17, so that's going to be really interesting, and it's in Pittsburgh. But the Ravens will get their chance at home against the Steelers. The Steelers also have to travel to Philadelphia, so they'll see the Eagles. But anyway, my point is that this offense is not diverse enough. George Pickens had 12 targets, 8 catches for 89 yards. There's only one other receiver that caught a pass, and it was Ben Skoranek, 1 catch for 4 yards.
He's good.
You can't. All the other opponent has to do is just stop Pickens, and then they're not going to throw it to, and they have nobody else to throw it to.
No, I like that they do that.
Yeah, because you must have them in fantasy.
I do.
I like that. I think they should throw more. It's a problem.
They just target one guy. Well,
I do that in Madden as well when I want them to be an all-time.
Look, it's not going to last long. I do like the Steelers. They're 4-0 with Russell Wilson as the starter, but I just don't think that it's going to last much longer. I do like them. I think they're going to make the playoffs like they always do. I find it hard. It's hard for me to see them winning more than one game in the playoffs, like max 1 win, and I don't even know if they're going to be able to get that.
You're right that it kind of defies logic, but the most important thing is they're winning. Like if they were all doing all this but losing by a field goal, we would be like up in arms. Like you got to score a touchdown. The trajectory of the game would be done. But they're winning these, and kind of unorthodox with the changing of the quarterback. You know why they pay the big bucks to Mike Tomlin. Fundamentally, they develop wide receivers. So George Pickens, I think, is finally like he was on my like list of supposed to be goods, and now he's finally breaching like franchise star. For the with the numbers that he's putting up. That's why, and I'm biased. He's in my fantasy league. I think he's good though. He's been a benefit of Russell Wilson. So it's like my point being is why not? Why can't they win? And I look at the example of today the Bills-Chiefs. Bills beat them with 30-21. The first time the Chiefs let an opponent score more than 28 points in 30 games. The Chiefs win these.
Wow.
Chiefs, I think Bills were the first. It was like some stat like that. And so the Chiefs, we guys know this. Like they have Mahomes, but they were winning games in the low 20s all the time. So you take a team like that, right? The reason I say why not with the Steelers is these are team game. The defense can score points too. They suppress the overall ceiling. I think if they're able to do that, that's the if they can potentially beat a team like the Chiefs if they're getting enough field goals. Like if the Chiefs only score around 20-ish, you can get without the weird efficiency of the Steelers and the potential for touchdowns. Makes me think they can. Like if the scoring's low, the defense can do it, and why not? Like we look at a team like Peyton Manning with the Broncos, a strong defense and enough of, like John, you were saying, enough offensive weapons and a veteran quarterback to make the right decisions, keep the play alive, like the wise fundamentals that get you there. That it ultimately, will they win a 30 point game if the opponent scores 30 or 40? They have the talent to do it. Probably not. But the Chiefs have been doing that like for 2 years now, or 2-3 years. Like they keep it in the 20s. So if the Steelers are able to make them play to that level, then you just need someone to make a play. So I think the Steelers are actually legit. We gotta accept that.
I think it's a matter of playoffs nowadays are all offense, and defense kind of gets thrown out the window.
Kind of. I mean, the Chiefs we take it for granted.
It's a matter of like if the Steelers are in a shootout offensively, can they do it? Do they have the capability to do it? Have we seen that this year? No. If they do it and they prove that they're able to go toe-to-toe with an offense and trade blows back and forth, okay, now we've seen that they can do it. But right up until this point, I'm going to anticipate that when playoffs come, they're going to be in an offensive shootout with maybe the Texans, maybe Chargers, maybe somebody.
The Chargers are low scoring too.
Chargers are low scoring.
In my opinion,
You're
who
not
do you
wrong, but
trust? Who do you trust more in the playoffs, like Steelers or Chargers? Chargers have the better offense.
True.
Chargers defense is
because we've
finally
shown
good.
it, though.
And the
We've
defense,
shown it.
right? And the defense
is finally getting a
good.
return.
So, like, I don't know. It's hard for me to convincingly say that the Steelers can win against any of these playoff teams.
And who do you trust, Herbert or Russell Wilson? Nowadays, Herbert. Herbert actually has I just saw that he has a 90+ quarterback rating or QBR or whatever in the first 10 weeks or first 11 weeks, which is a record. No NFL quarterback has ever done that. Like, he's so efficient.
He's doing really well with Harbaugh.
They're beating the Bengals right now 21-3. They've already scored more than
21
the
to
Steelers.
6.
As we speak, that's the score.
So
21-6.
it's
Wow.
like until we see that from the Steelers, I feel like I'm always, like John, you said, it's going to be hard for me to be like, yeah, I can confidently say they're going to make a run in the playoffs, because they're not going to be the number 1 seed, I don't think.
No.
So they're going to have to win 2 games just to get to the championship, the conference championship, to play probably the Chiefs. So can they even win those 2 games? Can they even win 1? I don't feel confident with the offense. The defense is great. And Caleb, they're squeaking by. And all you got to do is win. And that's what they're doing. But I just have an anticipation that they're going to be in an offensive shootout in the playoffs. I feel like it's always when playoffs come around, it's like defense gets thrown out the window.
It kind of does, but I I think of teams like Raven, who are the high scoring teams, but like potential Ravens, Bills,
Texans,
kind of, but they've been shut down.
They have been shut down
a little bit
a
of
lot.
sophomore slump.
We want to
see
Nico when Nico Collins comes back tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I want to see that.
Right. I would, for the sake of this, I would count them yet. Hold on. But like, what was the other? And then on the NFC side, what, Lions, Eagles, they're high scoring teams, but you think about it, when you have a good enough defense, you can bring that ceiling down. Like, it's almost more likely, you know what I mean?
True.
Like, to get to 20s, two plays going your way, and you're in 14.
If they were in the NFC, it'd be so much easier. I feel like the NFC is not as high scoring as years prior. So now
There's more extremes, I think.
Yeah.
The Lions did put up 52, right?
They did put up 52, but I feel like there's less teams that are more of an offensive threat. But
It's more mixed. Yeah. So I'm like, these defenses, Steelers might be a surprise. You're right that if they lose, we'll be pointing to like stats like this, but then it's like they keep doing it. I could see them beating a team like the Chiefs.
We're gonna keep doubting them, and then all of a sudden they're in the conference championship. So and they have a Super Bowl quarterback, so it's possible.
Yeah, 2 times he's been there. Let's not forget.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all I had for the podcast right now. Chargers, they're up 21-6.
How are you feeling right now? Because you're a Chargers fan.
I feel really good. I felt confident about this Bengals game. We've dominated the Bengals in years past. I think Harbaugh and everyone, we just have a formula. Like, we have a formula and we have an identity, and everybody knows that identity. J.K. Dobbins just ran in from the 1 yard line.
J.K. Dobbins?
J.K. Dobbins.
Wow.
J.K. Dobbins.
Dobbins and Mixon are 2 surprises for me. I kind of discounted them, but they've had some career resurgences. So good on those teams for optimizing
2,
them.
3, 4, 5, 6, 8 offensive linemen and tight ends on that rush. I mean, that's just hardball football.
Yeah.
I love watching.
Run.
I love watching. I think like I said, we're making the playoffs easy.
You're optimistic as a Chargers fan, which is
Yeah,
not often for you in years past.
Definitely. And like you were saying earlier, Staley just absolutely fumbled all these defensive studs. Look at what we're doing. It's so
Most
easy.
money spent.
It's so easy. I mean, come on. It's so easy to win with.
How he kept his job as long as he did. How about like not wanting to root for people to lose their jobs? But we for years, right? We're like, how is he still?
That was the only.
How does he keep getting away with it?
It's the only person I actually felt happy that he lost his job because any money that he got from that job, he got paid too much. If it was more than $100 for that job, he got paid too much, and I have no sympathy for him. All right, well, other than that, we're gonna sign off here.
Strays.
As we sit here renting our apartment.
I mean, dude, someone pay me to just stand on the sidelines. That's all he did, really.
No, Jerry Jones used to pay Jonathan to be a talent scout or something. Honestly,
Jerry, I know what I'm talking about. He's not the guy. Please. I've been saying this since day one. Mike McCarthy is not the guy. All right. Miss you, Jonathan. We'll see you next week. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. If you haven't already, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're on the road to 5,000 subscribers. If you haven't, go over to the TikTok and the Instagram at Dorm Debate Podcast and sauce to follow over on there. Big episode, I think in a week or two. Sports Jeopardy Part 2 is coming out. Super exciting for our Thanksgiving to show how thankful we are. We're going to give you guys a Sports Jeopardy episode. It's a good one, and super excited for you guys to watch that. So, yeah, and you guys haven't seen that, so you guys will be able to see it too. It'll be a little Christmas gift early for everybody. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching again. As always, we will see you guys next week.